Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Calvary's Cave, and it's time for part 2! Yeah, baby! I thought the first book was bad. Oh. Volume 2? I'm not ready. So, before we begin, I just wanted to give y'all a heads up that if you haven't seen part 1 of this series, I'm going to go ahead and link it down below, or there might be a place for you to click on the other video. But if you want to see my review for the Black Swordsman arc, feel free to click on the link and take a look at that before we get started here. But for those of you who have seen it, there's so much to go over. I'm not okay. The first time around, I was a little bit unstructured in my critique of the Black Swordsman arc. So this time, I've got a little more idea of what I'm going to be talking about, but we're just going to dive into it. Now, before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Without further ado, let's get into it. Today, we are starting the Golden Age. And wouldn't you know it, Berserk starts off with a gruesome scene. Who could have thought? Who could have guessed? So we start off with seeing a whole bunch of hanging bodies on this tree. And beneath all of these bodies, there's a single baby. And it's drawn in this beautiful art style, a little bit different than what you see in like the majority of the chapters. Every now and again, Miura locks in, puts pen to paper, sets the paper on fire, that kind of stuff, and he draws these beautiful scenes. Whether it's gruesome or not, they're beautiful. I can't deny this guy can draw. And we get this opening double page spread of a tree with a bunch of hanging bodies from it, and then we cut to an infant Guts. It looks like he's about a couple of days old. We're not entirely sure the exact day or, exactly how old he is, but we do know that he is a newborn baby. And we see that Guts doesn't have a mom or a dad. We don't get any confirmation on who his lineage is. And you know what? I like that. I'm kind of tired of the whole chosen one trope or the royal lineage trope. It's been played before. I want to see the dark horse. I want to see somebody with no background rise to the top and get everything that he wanted in life. Now, spoiler alert, Guts doesn't get everything that he wanted in life, at least not yet, from where I am in the story, because from what I can tell, the Golden Age arc is nothing but backstory. And that's fine. I want to see, like I said in the previous video, I want to see how he got here. And darn it, we're here. So once the animation style cuts back to normal, we get introduced to two very important characters. One being Sis. I believe that's how you say her name, C-I-S. If they wanted me to say it any way else, the spelling could have helped a little bit more, but I'm gonna say Sis. I think that's correct. And Gambino. Now, Sis had a miscarriage recently, and they bring that up immediately. While they're riding past this tree of hanging bodies, Sis jumps off of the cart. There's like this pack of mercenaries or whatever they are. Sis, since she had a miscarriage recently, jumps off of the cart and runs to this baby Guts, picks him up, and starts mothering him like he was her own. Now, the crew thinks she's crazy. They think that she's lost her mind ever since the miscarriage, which is completely understandable. I know that is a horrible, horrible thing to go through. So I'm not giving Sis any trouble for what she's doing right now. She sees a baby, she wants to nurture that baby. And even though the crew thinks that he's already dead, miraculously, Guts is alive. They try to pull Sis away, and she ends up dropping Guts on the ground, and then Guts starts crying. Everyone's freaking out. He's alive. Now, earlier I mentioned we get introduced to two characters, Sis being the first, Gambino being the second. Spoiler alert, Gambino sucks. And we see it right off the bat. As soon as they start talking about Sis having a miscarriage, the crew immediately points fingers at Gambino saying, hey, wasn't that your kid? And Gambino was like, I don't know. Probably not. So it's implied that Gambino was the father, but we don't get any official confirmation for it. But based off of Gambino's demeanor, I would say that he was the father. He sucks, like seriously. But we'll get into that. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about why he sucks. And during this time, I think it's important to point out that the crew believes that because Guts was found underneath the body of his hanging mother that he is a bad omen. And from birth all the way up to the end of this little plot line, they constantly say that Guts was nothing but a bad omen. So this is kind of important to address right now. The crew does not like Guts from the start. Not his fault, but, you know, that's unfortunately the story we're reading. Time skip! 3 years later, meaning Guts is 3 years old, and Sis is already dying. Yeah, I know she was like one of the better characters in the show. She... gone. Nothing to see here. When Guts turns 3 years old, she immediately gets the plague, and on her deathbed, she wants to see Guts one last time. Crew's telling her, hey, you know, probably shouldn't get near her, you'll catch the plague too, and, you know, you'll die too. Guts doesn't care. He gets to hold his semi-mother's hand for the last time. And there's a, you know, a very beautiful scene with them both. And that's it, you know, she passes away, but we get this beautiful scene with them together one last time, holding hands. Guts brave enough to combat the plague, even if it means that he'll die. He wants to hold his mom's hand one last time. Even though it's not his mother, I don't know if he knows that. He's only 3 years old. He probably doesn't, but he at least gets that closure. Now, unfortunately, since we're reading Berserk, the crew makes it a point that told you he was a bad omen. That's probably why she got the plague. Guts can't catch a break from birth. Up until now, he cannot catch a break. He does catch one a little bit later, but, you know, we'll get there. Time skip! Another 3 years. Guts is now 6 years old, and he's on the battlefield. Now, he's not really fighting anybody, but he's assisting Gambino during his battles. And in this battle, Gambino's asking Guts for a spear, and like any 6-year-old would do, he fumbles the bag. He's unable to pick up the spear, understandably, but he was able to get it, and at the last second, gives it to Gambino. He finishes off one of his ops. Understandably, Guts was a little slow to hand over the spear, and Gambino wasn't too happy about that. So, Gambino, in a fit of rage, he blames it on Guts, because you know what? Gambino sucks. No other way to put it. And what adds another layer to this being messed up is that Guts is not too accustomed to being around dead bodies. And there's like blood sprayed all over him, and he's only a kid. You know, of course, he's a little traumatized by it. Like, he's not trying to hand over the spear in a hurry. You know, he's a kid. So Guts gets a little traumatized by the war because, you know, he gets intestines sprayed all over his body by his ops. It's a little much. So flash forward, we get to see that Gambino is training with Guts, and they're having a nice little sparring match. Well, I shouldn't say it's a nice sparring match, but they're sparring, and Gambino doesn't know how to train kids. He is training him like a grown man. Knees Guts in the gut, pun intended. This is where we get to see the origins of Guts's giant sword. Ever since he was a kid, he's been carrying a sword that's too big for him. In this case, it's a regular sword to us adults, but as a child, it's kind of difficult to, you know, pick that thing up. But Gambino doesn't care because, understandably, they don't carry children-sized weapons. It's not really in their nature. So if he's going to train with an adult weapon. And as much as I give Gambino a tough time, he's kind of got a point. You know, they don't carry kids' weapons. I mean, at least give the kid a dagger, but whatever. But after getting kneed in the gut, Guts decides to lock in and put in that work against Gambino. He does like a flash step, dodges underneath Gambino's sword, and grazes Gambino on the cheek. Did I mention that Gambino sucks? Because he immediately retaliates and slices Guts on the nose. Right there. And understandably, the crew is shocked. They didn't really like that he did that. They're like, dude, you've gone too far. And then a random NPC comes in and makes a childish Gambino reference. Don't believe me? You know what's funny is that I'm holding the deluxe edition part 2. Let me get the first one real quick. Just stay right there. I just stubbed my toe on a dumbbell. Oh, but it was worth it. That was a bit childish, Gambino. My sweetest Sonia. It was kind of worth it. Well, now my toe hurts, but anything for the bit, right? So we cut to later on that night, and Guts is laying in bed, and it's a rather disgusting depiction of what Guts is going through, because he said he's struggling to breathe while he's trying to sleep. He can't sleep because his nose, now that the sword like went all the way to the bone, is filled with blood. He can't breathe. And in this desperate moment that Guts is in, or I wouldn't say it's all that desperate, but he's really going through it right now. Gambino is basically one of the only father figures he has, and he essentially gave him a permanent scar that's caused some real damage to him. And he doesn't know how to cope with his feelings, and he ends up cuddling with his sword at night to make him feel better about what just happened. And that's going to become really important in the future, is that Guts really likes to hold on to that sword at night. It's going to become fairly important later, but Guts really does want that sword around him at all times, especially at night. It gives him this sense of comfort, and for good reason, but we'll get to that. So later on the next day, I think it's the next day, I'm assuming it is, but Gambino walks over to Guts. Guts is, still upset about what's going on with his nose, and Gambino passes him some healing salve or some type of medicine. And I believe this is where Guts first gets his bond with Gambino. Now, as much as I don't like Gambino, it's clear that Guts is starting to show some trust in him, and from this panel, it does look like Gambino is starting to show a little bit of his softer side to want to give medicine to Guts. It kind of opens up Gambino's character as being someone who's a little harsh, but he can be loving, which is not true. Don't believe it. Time skip. Another 3 years. Guts is 9. So by this time, at 9 years old, Guts is on the battlefield. He is no longer fazed by being around dead enemies, and he's not afraid to take a life either. He is putting in that work. So it's clear that Guts, at 9 years old, is not fazed anymore, and he is in the battle, killing grown adults, fighting alongside his crew, and taking the lives for the love of the game. So after the win, Guts gives all of the money that he's earned over to Gambino. It's clear that Guts wants Gambino to be proud of him. He really does see him as a father figure by this point. And I'll admit, Gambino does show a flash of being proud. He looks back, gives Guts a smile, and says, "Here, take a coin." He gives him a couple of crumbs and said, "Hurry on then." And then we meet Donovan. He wants to have a word with Gambino, but at this time, we don't know what that is. Spoiler alert, we're gonna figure it out in about a page or so. I should mention that Donovan is a big, ugly boy. So we cut to night, and Donovan enters into Guts' tent. I'm trying to think of the words to get over this scene. There's no great way around it, but Donovan lets Guts know that Gambino sold him for the night. And there is this graphic struggle. We saw 3 years earlier that he likes to have his sword on him at all times, especially at night. Guts reaches for his sword to no avail because Donovan's big. He overpowers Guts, and I'll stop it there. If you want to know, you can read it yourself. And that's how we end the first volume. And now we start the second one. Did I forget to mention that it picks up where it left off? Guess what? You thought the scene ended there? Nope. And the rest of what happens plays out. I'm still not going to talk about it. Read it yourself. So the next morning, Guts has no words. He's got nothing to say. He's got this blank stare, staring to the opening of his tent, and he picks up his sword, and based off of what Donovan tells him, he fully intends to take Gambino's life, and understandably so. So Guts heads outside to take out Gambino, and Gambino feigns ignorance. He said, "What do you want?" It's just another Tuesday for him. He does not care, or at least he pretends to not know anything of what happened last night. Spoiler alert, he's pretending he totally knows what happened, but we'll get there. Spoiler alert, Gambino sucks. And it's really unfortunate because Guts is holding on to the trust that he was earning with Gambino. He's holding on to some faith that Gambino didn't sell him out. He's holding on to faith that Gambino did not subject him to what just happened. So Guts is unable to get revenge on Gambino at this time, so he takes it out on a barrel, and that's it. End of scene. So we flash forward to another fight scene with some unknown enemy, some undisclosed ops, but Donovan's on the battlefield too. Donovan heads out, and he goes deep into the woods chasing after some NPC, kills him, and mysteriously there turns out to be an arrow popping out of his chest. Oh, how could that have happened? It's Guts! It's Guts payback time, baby! Ooh, ooh, ooh. I need a breather after that. And Donovan can't get enough. So much so that in the next panel, he's already swallowing another arrow whole. No questions asked. So while Donovan is bleeding out, Guts stands over him with this big ol' sword and he lays it on the tip of his tongue and says, "Say it again. Tell me what you told me the other day." Guts wants Donovan to confirm that it was Gambino. And right when Donovan is about to say Gambino's name again, Guts ain't want to hear it. He basically says, "Put some respect on my father's name." Finishes the job. Put some respect on my dad's name. Unfortunately, Guts is wrong, but I understand where he's coming from. He doesn't want to believe that it happened. If you're watching this video, you probably already read Berserk, so spoiler alert, Guts is wrong. So once Guts finishes the deed with Donovan, he hops on his horse, heads right back into battle, and once you know that, I turn the page, and Gambino is already tumbling down a hill, and we flash forward to after the battle, and it looks like Gambino is bedridden, and he's out of it, and we see that, hey, wouldn't you know, he's missing a leg. So Gambino is bedridden, and while he's trying to fight off death, he goes into this fit of delusion, and he starts speaking to Guts, thinking that he is Sis. Now, as much as I like to give Gambino a hard time, I do enjoy this scene about his character because even though he was disgusting to her, didn't want to take ownership over the child, which I'm like, again, I said it's heavily implied, and I'm gonna just, my headcanon says that he was the father, but I think it's nice to know that even after all these years, he still thinks about her. That's the one nice thing I'll say, and that is it. Wouldn't you know it, Gambino has a soft side. But I seriously don't care. Spoiler alert, Gambino sucks. Time skip. 2 years. Guts is now 11 years old, and he's noticeably stronger. Again, our boy Guts puts in that work and takes out one of the enemy generals, and he goes straight to Gambino with a bag of money. He said, look what I did. Hey, Dad, aren't you proud of me? And Gambino immediately orders him to take that money and buy some meat for the dog. Now, by this time, it looks like the crew already kind of kicked Gambino out of the group, or not out of the group, but he's no longer the leader since he's not fit to lead. He's missing a leg. And so all he has at this point is his dog, and he wants Guts to spend his hard-earned cash on getting some meat for the dog. Now, Guts is kind of taken aback by it because he assumes that he knows what Gambino wants. Typically, it's women and wine, but that's not what Gambino wants at this time. He wants to get meat for his dog, which, okay, sounds fine. But Guts is kind of confused by the request. Gambino gives him no time to think about it because he whacks Guts in the face with one of his crutches. Guts is taken aback by it, understandably, and he scurries off. So it looks like Gambino has been big mad since he lost his leg. Stay mad, bro. I do not care. So Guts goes to his tent, throws his money around, and starts crashing out, breaking a whole bunch of stuff. But after he's gotten it all out of his system, he goes to bed and wakes up to a stormy night with Gambino standing over him with the smile of a demon. Now, he's not possessed or anything, but the way that Mira draws him in this panel makes it look like he's been taken over by some demonic force. Maybe it's more of like a metaphor, but, you know, they give him sharp teeth and stuff. I don't know why he did it. Maybe it was just a stylistic choice to show that he was kind of going crazy in this moment. Don't forget to hydrate. And in this flash fit of rage, Gambino tries to kill Guts. And Guts is confused. He has no clue what's going on. He just woke up. His father figure is over here trying to kill him, and he doesn't understand what's going on. I get it. Who would have acted any differently? Like, you know, what's going on? So Guts asks the question, what are you doing? And Gambino starts to vent about all of his misfortunes ever since the acquisition of Guts 11 years ago. He says that he lost everything ever since they found Guts. But little does Gambino know that he's still got one thing left to lose. And Guts ain't leaving until he takes it. Now, Gambino thinks that Guts should have died on that day 11 years ago. And then he finally reveals the truth to Guts about what happened on that night with Donovan. Gambino finally comes clean and tells Guts that he sucks. Spoiler alert, Gambino sucks. And in this moment, Guts starts to spiral, and He's falling into this pit of despair. Guts lifts up his sword as Gambino lunges at him, and Guts' sword glides right through Gambino's neck. At least Gambino doesn't suck anymore. Oh my gosh, he's so cool! I wish I could be that funny. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We get it! Jokes aside, Guts is traumatized again. Who would have thunk it? He just killed the closest thing to his father figure, and he has no time to process what happened, because during the scuffle, it turns out that the tent is on fire. And the crew wakes up and they're rushing in there, and they're like, whoa, there's a fire in camp. Is it a raid? And then they see it, Guts standing over the dead body of Gambino. And the crew, not knowing anything that just happened or anything that just transpired, they immediately lay the blame on Guts, saying that he was a bad omen from the start, and Guts has no time to process what just happened. They immediately draw their swords on him, but unfortunately, the crew trained him since birth. So Guts start putting in that work against them. And he flees, runs off into the woods. The crew decided to chase, and in that moment, the crew, they blame everything on him. They have some back and forth real quick, and they chase after Guts into the woods. So as Guts is fleeing, he gets tagged by an arrow right in the shoulder blade. And as any 11-year-old child would do when they get stuck in the back with an arrow, he falls off a cliff, as you do. Guts is still alive. He's laying down on the ground at the bottom of this cliff, and he starts to question his entire life. Why? Why did this all have to happen? But more importantly, where is he going to go next? He's literally been with this crew for the last 11 years, from birth to now. He's known nothing but this crew, and they abandoned him in the blink of an eye. He has no clue where to go. But as he gets up, starts questioning his future, walking around, would you look at that? A group of friendly wolves joins the fray. They enter stage left just in the nick of time to start raising Guts from here on out. Right? Right? That is what happens, right? Oh, no. No, that's not what happens, actually. Yeah, they try to kill Guts. But Guts puts in that work. Wolves are no match for this 11-year-old child. After he's killed a couple of wolves, Guts starts to release a little bit of Conqueror's hockey. The wolves get scared, they scurry off. And Guts, after the arrow in the back, falling off a cliff and killing a couple of wolves, he passes out. This kid is built different, I tell you. So while he's passed out, he gets picked up by a couple of mercenaries. And as a stark contrast to everything that we've heard up until now, they finally tell him, well, at least he's not conscious when they say it to him, but they say that for him to be alive after all of these circumstances, it must be a good omen. I really do enjoy that one scene. It's so small, but what we go through at the beginning of the Golden Age has been nothing but a quick fire of a whole bunch of terrible events that happened to Guts. And this is what I truly feel to be the first turnaround. You know what? It's a good omen that we found him. And I really do enjoy that quick little switch from what we've been reading up till now. It's a nice little bit of reprieve, even though we're probably about to get into something worse in just a bit. But I really enjoyed just having that portion. I just really enjoyed that quote where they take the time to mention that, you know what, even if you were labeled as a bad omen this entire time, that's not what you are. But unfortunately, Guts isn't conscious to hear them say it. Probably would have been very important to his character, but oh well. While Guts is passed out, he starts to reminisce on all of the times that he had with Gambino. And it's really unfortunate because just moments, like actual moments before, he truly looked up to him as a father. And in that short amount of time, he learned the truth about Gambino. He lost Gambino. He just got bopped in the nose by Gambino like just the day before. He lost his entire crew. He got shot in the back, killed a couple of wolves, and like it all happened in like the span of 15 minutes, I'm assuming. And as he's unconscious, it's very natural that he would be dreaming about Gambino because you're trying to cope with the idea that your life has been a lie this entire time. So I do enjoy that one last scene of Gambino. Hopefully I don't get any further flashbacks of him, but knowing Berserk, we might get it. But I'm well into the third volume already, or the third deluxe edition already, and I haven't seen him again yet. nor do I want to see him, because I did not like his character. And I'm sure Miura wrote him that way intentionally. I just personally could not stand it. It was too much for me. Guess what? Time skip! 4 years. So Guts is now 15 years old, and wouldn't you know it, spoiler alert, they're on another battlefield. Who would have guessed? Who would have thunk it? But this time skip is very important because Guts gets his first boss fight, the Grey Knight Bazuso, or for you Elden Ring fans out there,
Bazuso, the Knight of Grey!
Definitely a lot older. It's very clear that he's a lot stronger, and we see him with his iconic big boy sword. He ain't afraid to fight. I'm just joking. It's not much of a boss fight because, you know, it looks like he's about to give him a run for his money, but even Guts at 15, he's just insanely powerful. All of the guards that are kind of watching, they want Bazuso to do all of the heavy lifting, but he is truly no match for Guts. He swings that giant big boy sword and it chops his axe in half. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a feat in itself. And Bazuso is flabbergasted by it, and he is definitely not ready for Guts bringing down the hammer on his skull. It's not much of a hammer per se, but you get what I mean. And that's it. That is the end of Bazuso. And that is also officially the end of chapter 3 of the Golden Age arc. Now, I think that is a perfect time to go ahead and stop it here, because starting in chapter 4, we get introduced to the main plot. But I don't want to get there just yet. You know, I don't want to make these videos like 3 hours long. The Golden Age is a very, very long arc. So I want to be able to digest kind of what I had, read a little bit more, take some more notes, just so I can, come up with some more funny bits for you guys, those of you that are watching. Get some, better content for you guys, get some better skits, better jokes, things like that. But to sum up the Golden Age arc, it's so heavy. It really is. I'm trying to make the presentation of this show more comedic, because we don't have Puck anymore. We're not going to get Puck for quite a while. I'm well into the 3rd deluxe volume, and Puck's still nowhere to be seen. So, we don't have that bit of comedic relief. And there is some comedy, but it's just, it's not the same without my little angel. To sum it all up, Berserk, I really didn't think it could get much worse, but I was in for a rude awakening. There's just so much that Miura puts into the story, and maybe some of you have some better insight for me. The best way for me to describe my experience so far is giving me more of an appreciation for Guts during the Black Swordsman arc. I know I was giving him a hard time saying, you know what? Hey, I didn't really like that he said that. I didn't really like that he said that. But when you find out what Guts has gone through, it's like, you know what? He owes nothing to anyone. The world has done nothing but take and take and take and take, and he's kind of tired of it. He doesn't want to be with anybody else. He gave his trust to Gambino, and it was immediately betrayed. I shouldn't say immediately, it still took 9 years, but like, you're still a child, you know what I mean? I can't really emphasize it enough, but the emotions that Miura is able to portray through use of shadows is immaculate. He draws such intricate detail, and on my first read through, for some reason, I didn't appreciate it nearly as much as I do now reading it the second time. And while I'm reading it the second time, I'm doing significantly more research into each panel. I wouldn't say research, but I'm paying much more closer attention to what Miura is trying to portray. And I'm able to pull in so much more the second time around. And that's my bad. It's my fault for not, putting in the work and understanding Miura's intention. But on a second read through, it's definitely a much better experience. I'm starting to get the full picture, and I'm enjoying my time so far. I want to make it fun for you guys. I want to make it lighthearted, but it does take a piece of me away to read more of this. And I still haven't gotten to the eclipse. I'm saving my reaction for you guys. It's not going to be like an actual reaction video, but I want to be able to go through the eclipse while I'm on camera and like pick out my highlights of like, oh, oh, you know, things like that. You know, I don't want to have anything to do with YouTube's copyright system. I'm trying my best to stay away from that nonsense. But like I said, I really am enjoying myself reading this. Not the much darker topics. I find myself very much not enjoying those portions. It's really hard to put into words how I feel about this show. There are some moments that, man, I really, really, really do like it. And there are other moments where I'm like, you know what, why am I reading this? You know, for you other Berserk fans out there, let me know if you had some type of similar experience, or if you're just in it, you know, you love it from start to finish. You know, feel free to let me know, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. How was your first read through? But I think I'm gonna end it here, because starting in the next chapter, we get introduced to Griffith, and I think that's best kept for the next video regarding the Golden Age arc. I'm not really sure how much longer the Golden Age goes for, but it's going to be a fun journey trying to get to the end of it, and I look forward to this experience with the rest of you. Anyways, if you like what you see here and you want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a future upload. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay beautiful. You still here?